Hey, here we go. Just got back from the dentist, so I apologize if my face behaves weird. I'm going to try to talk through this best I can. Welcome back to the Tailosive Tech YouTube channel live. Today we're talking iPad Air 5 because it sounds like what the primary feature was intended to be for this next generation iPad. Basically, the big brother of the iPad mini here. Sorry, we're not doing center stage today. I thought I would give everybody's eyes a break, and typically the bitrate seems to be a lot more stable and look a lot better when we're not live through the YouTube app, so you can crank it up to 1080p if you feel like it, luckily. But yeah, shocker, Apple's thinking about making a bigger version of this iPad. I know, right? So crazy. But it's allegedly Samsung's fault. Unfortunately, I do have the article up here that I was reading not too long ago. The project was stopped to either the single stack structure of OLED panel or profitability issues or both. People familiar with the matter said. This is coming from The Electric, talking about a supply chain analyst they're hearing from. Single stack refers to a current widely used OLED panel structure where red, green, and blue form one emission layer. So the issue, I guess, is that Apple's not satisfied with the brightness levels of single-stack OLED panels and is also wary of the panel's lifespan. So that's probably referring to burn-in because they know that consumers are holding on to iPads longer than phones. So this is probably very true if you consider that Apple is still providing iPadOS updates to the iPad Air 2, which I believe is coming up on either 7 or 8 years or something like that, and they're still providing updates for it. So I agree. You want to make sure that the displays you use on your iPad are going to last a very, very long time. It just sounds like the OLED displays they were looking into are just not quite ready yet. Samsung has only commercialized a single stack structure, and it's either not able or not willing to supply the two-stack technology, according to this report, because Apple wanted a two-stack structure that stacks red, green, blue emission layers instead of one. It doubles the brightness and expands the panel's life by 4x. So I'm guessing Apple has essentially, if you're confused by all of these different terminologies, Apple has a certain standard that they want their displays to be held to. Is part of the explanation as to why it took Apple so long to adopt an LTPO OLED display. You know, people are talking a lot about how 120 hertz took forever and how come Apple took so long for 120 hertz. It's likely because, for one, manufacturing volume. I think that is another big variable when it comes to bringing some type of technology to the iPhone. You need to be able to produce it at insane scale. But we've been talking about how certain phones, Android phones on the market, have had 120 hertz since like 2017 or 16. Not OLED displays, but there were LCDs. I think it was the Razer phone, which was, if not the first, one of the first to have 120 hertz. And ever since I saw it, I've wanted it on everything. But the reason it took so long was because Apple had a fairly rigorous and high quality standard that they wanted their displays to reach when it came to color accuracy, which there were many, not like everyday consumers noticing this type of thing. One could argue Apple's being a little too strict with their display quality. But then we have, things like Jellygate happen where people say Apple's not strict enough and they should have tried harder to make sure that the Jellygate wouldn't be as noticeable, despite the fact that it's unavoidable and it's how all LCD displays work. But Apple wanted to wait until they could get 120 hertz right with the correct driver ICs, with the correct color accuracy, and with the correct resolution. You notice there were a lot of OLED 120 hertz displays that were 1080p. And if you wanted them to be 1440p, or really not even that, anything above 1080p, you would have to turn off 120 hertz. Samsung had that on a couple generations of phone. Just more recently, within the past year or so, they started doing full resolution and 120 hertz. But it still took a while for Samsung to be able to ramp up that production to the point of iPhone levels of volume. It's somewhat, in my opinion, a similar story here. With the iPad Air, it's like they have a certain brightness level that they want the OLED iPad Air 5 to be, and they want a certain amount of burn-in, which is 0. That's the certain amount. They don't want there to be burn-in for an extended period of time because they know iPad Air is going to be used and hold on to for a very, very long time. And Samsung essentially, for whatever price or whatever manufacturing volume, cannot deliver on that. And basically the main takeaway from the article is that profitability is said to be the factor in Samsung's unwillingness to provide the technology. So they can't make the display that Apple wants with the two-stack structure cheap enough. And because of that, the Elec is suggesting that the OLED iPad Air is not going to come out until 2023, which obviously makes the next generation iPad Air up for debate, considering we're about to come up on the 1-year mark that it's been around. People are wondering when the next iPad Air is going to be and what features it's going to have. I know a lot of you guys are interested right now because the iPad mini, which is the iPad Air's little brother, got all of these great features and more. This got a ton of stuff that the iPad Air doesn't even have, like center stage and 5G and the A15 chip and the flash. Little details like that. Everyone's like, okay, well, why the heck would I get an iPad Air? It costs more than this and it's missing features. So clearly there's got to be some kind of refresh plan for the next gen iPad Air. This article doesn't go too in depth on the detail of when exactly to expect the Air 5. My guess is sometime next year. I don't think it's going to be this year, personally. I could be wrong, but if the OLED display ends up being scrapped, which again, this is still a leak, this is still a rumor, so we can't consider it fact. You know, they might just wake up one day, hey, we decided we found a way to make it work. Maybe Samsung will just decide, okay, we'll manufacture them at a loss, or we'll just not be as profitable with this display, and they'll make it happen. So always take a huge chunk of salt with every single rumor I report on. But typically when there's bad news rumors, those are more likely to be true. And even if they're not true, it at least gets your expectations in check, which is why I always like to cling and kind of hang on to bad news, because it prevents people from, not that I like bad news. Obviously, it's not fun to talk about something that might not happen or something that's been canceled or scrapped. But it is important for you guys to be aware of, like, what's up for debate, what's up, what's in question to not make it. So there's a lot of people in the chat. I'm going to do my best to catch up. Let's see. People are saying it's for MacBook Pro. What, the M1X chip? Yeah. Why would they give a low-end MacBook Pro chip to an iPad Pro, but higher-end MacBook Pro chip to iPad Air? Yeah, no, I don't think they would give. I don't think they would give the iPad Air an M1X chip. No, thank you. Gerardo says OLED iPhone 14. I mean, I assume so. All the iPhones have been OLED for a while now. It seems like you guys are having a discussion with yourself. The iPad Air 6, though, that's next gen. Sid, nah, the Air isn't better, but it's a very good iPad. iPad Air 6 with M1X chip and OLED screen, same camera from iPhone 13. I don't think so. They can't make it that good. There might be some upgrades with the iPad Pro line in regards to the camera, but I have a feeling that the iPad Air is going to continue to get kind of hand-me-down cameras. For real. Air Motion would be a good name. Maybe a 90 hertz, and they call it Air Motion. Oh, I see. I don't know. I think the difference between 90 and 120 is so small as is that Apple's probably just going to keep the gap between 60 and 120. I don't know if they need a display refresh rate that's somewhere in between. Whole bunch of NaCl you got there, mate. Wow, chemistry jokes. Red Digital Crown. What are you talking about? iPad Air Vapor Max Edition. Come on, Tim, release the Series 7. Well, yeah, they've unveiled it. We need to buy it now. Come on. Will iPad Air 5 be a site refresh? With how Apple is having events these days, I don't think it would be, considering the iPad 8 was not a site refresh, and yet it totally should have been, considering how minor of a change it was, but they decided to throw it in an event. At this point, it may be too optimistic to assume, but I think it may not be impossible that Apple holds a spring event. I don't know why. It just feels like after 2 years, Apple has felt pretty comfortable with Quadruple UDC being all about software, given 2020 was all about software, 2021 was all about software, really no hardware or much hardware talked about a lot. But there was a ton of hardware unveiled in a spring event on 420 this year, right before Quadruple UDC took place. So with that being the case, maybe there will be a spring event next year where they'll update the iPad Air 5, and they'll give it an A15 chip, they'll give it flash, they'll give it center stage and 5G cellular. maybe one or two other things. I can't think of much they could do. Here's an idea. This might sound crazy, but considering that all of the Magic Keyboard cases that they sell for the iPad Air have like the larger camera cut out in the back, maybe they update the camera. I'm not saying they give it the iPhone 13 camera, but give it more of like a 2020 iPad Pro camera. Maybe they don't give it LiDAR, but they give it an ultra wide. But that makes me question really quick. Are there iPad Air accessories with a small cutout? That would make a difference. I guess Apple doesn't care. They could just tell you buy new accessories, right? They've done that before. Come on, where's the iPad Air? Cases and protection. These are for the budget iPad, 4th generation. Let me see the back. This is the only picture? What does the back look like? I can't even find it. I know what the Magic Keyboard case looks like, but they don't want to show the back of a... For iPad Air. Does this show that? Yeah. See, stuff like this, it wouldn't work. If they made the iPad Air 5 with a bigger camera bump, this cutout wouldn't work anymore. But maybe Apple likes that, you know? Like, obviously, they were totally fine with everyone buying new cases for the iPhone 13. They were like, well, I guess you got to buy something new. So that's not like a guarantee that they wouldn't do that. Let's see. Petition for Drew to bring back the starting soon screen where he dances to Dance Till You're Dead like he had in the older Twitch stream days. Copyright law prevents me from being able to dance to that song. I do like the dancing, but I think people get tired of it after a certain amount of time. It gets old. Let's see. Eventually, Apple will run out of ideas like Android and start folding everything. I feel like they're getting close to that as is. But I think Marquez brought up a good point in his iPhone 13 review. It's kind of the Camry of smartphones. You know, are you supposed to buy the new Toyota Camry every single year? No, because the differences are going to be incremental. But there's people that buy cars and hold on to them for 8, 10, 15 years. And when they're ready to upgrade, you want to make sure that the car they buy has the latest stuff from that year because they're going to hold on to that car for a very long period of time. It's kind of the same thing with iPhones. Like, that wasn't an analogy I had heard before, but I think MKBHD summed it up pretty well in the sense that it's the same thing with Apple Watches. Like, with the exception of 2018, pretty much every single Apple Watch upgrade is fairly minor. So people are always like, yeah, series, whatever, is not that big a change. It's like, no, this is what all Apple Watch upgrades are. It's usually like slight change with the sensor, slight change with the display. Like with the Series 2, they were like, okay, now it's water resistant, and okay, the display's a little brighter, the chip's a little faster. Every year, they just get incrementally a little bit better, and it's not because they expect you to buy a new Apple Watch every single year, although they'll be happy to take your money if you feel like it. What they do know, though, is that people will buy an Apple Watch, hold on to it for several years, and then when the battery degrades and you're at 4 years or 5 years and you're ready for a new one, you want to buy one that was released somewhat recently. Otherwise, you're going to buy a watch with 2 or 3 year old tech, which is my counter argument to the people saying like, maybe Apple should just release a phone or a watch every other year. Maybe they should just do one every 24 months instead of every 12 months. It's like, no, because then you would have people buying a watch with 20-month-old tech when they're ready to upgrade, and then 4 months go by and a new one comes out. It's like, you already have a little bit of that with the 12-month. You know, I try to tell people online as much as possible, you know, don't buy an iPhone and an Apple Watch, 3 to 4 months before a refresh. And if you are that close and you need an upgrade, at least find a deal somewhere. Find it on sale, find it refurbished, find a discount, that kind of thing. Will the Apple Watch ever get a camera? I won't say never. I'll just say that if it does, it's because they've completely run out of ideas. Let's see. Drew, is the iPhone 12... I've got the iPhone 12. Is a good idea to sell it and get the 13 mini? I just... That answer can never be objective. Do you want the 13 mini? If yes, then probably, yeah. Kind of off topic, but how's going back to the Series 3 bin after selling the Series 6? Zachary, you spoiled it for everyone. It's horrible. I hate it. Every 18 months? No, I'm saying we already have this problem every 12 months. So kind of like the more you stretch it out, the greater that problem becomes. Um, let's see. My Series 6 is at 94% battery health. Mine was at 92, I believe. If you think about people buying new cases, it doesn't benefit Apple at all, mostly. Well, I mean, it benefits Apple. They get to move more inventory. They get more of a profit. The back is Air camera cutout. Okay, fair enough. Any rumors with AirTags 2? None I've heard so far. I can't really think of much they could add. I have a feeling that's going to be one of those product categories that doesn't change for a long time. I mean, obviously, it'd be nice to have better battery or more color options or that kind of thing, but it's just something I don't see Apple paying much attention to. Would Apple stay with the boxy design for a while? Probably. It's kind of like a fashion trend thing. I don't think the boxy design is going to stay forever. But they need ways of making the new iPhone look different from the old iPhone. So they go a while with the squared off design, and then they'll go back to the rounded design later, probably. You know, they just kind of go back and forth. For the battery life alone, it might be worth it to upgrade from the 12 mini to 13 mini. Yeah, I don't think it's as major as people are making it out to be. You know, it's still not like game-changing, incredible battery life, but it's pretty good. Let's see. After like 6 months or so of having my Apple Watch SE, it's surprisingly at 100%. I've been using it every day, including sleep tracking, so I'm really surprised. Well, awesome. The SE is still the best value watch. I don't think that'll change, at least in the meantime. Hey, Manuel, thank you very much, Mr. Ramos, for becoming a supporter. Appreciate that. For those who don't know, $2 a month updates on upcoming stuff and all that jazz. Thank you. Mark Sequence says, sub to the chat, Lurk Squad and Replay Crew, did you have your eye on anything in particular for the rest of the year? Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm, as you can tell, super duper in the market for a Series 7 now. I'm definitely going to buy one as soon as it's available. I'm not sure which color, but I know I want to get steel. I'm going to opt for the sapphire-infused glass this year, and I don't like gold, so I'm basically torn between graphite and silver. So the Series 7 is on my list, as well as the new MacBook Pros, which are rumored. We potentially have a video coming up on that maybe later today. But yeah, I'm really, really interested to see what Apple Silicon can do on a higher budget. We've seen the capabilities of the M1 chip when Apple has a rough budget of like $1,000 Mac or so, or an iPad. And now I want to see what is capable with Apple Silicon when the budget is more like $2,000, when Apple has more overhead and they can go a tad more crazy. Basically, the most powerful Apple Silicon ever should be launching within the next couple months. And I'm super duper interested about that. Other than those two things, I can't think of much. I'm just excited for the M1X chip in general. I don't care if it's in a Mac Mini or in a MacBook, like whatever. Like, I just want to see how fast Apple Silicon can be, because I reviewed the MacBook Air last year with the M1 chip, and I was impressed, but it was way faster than I was expecting the entry-level Mac to be, considering it was a fanless design, and I was able to run my whole YouTube network off of a MacBook Air. I did all my video editing and my live streaming off of it, and it's very good, but the performance is not quite as fast at export times as my iMac Pro. So that makes it difficult for me to justify switching, because as great as Apple Silicon is, and I'm a huge fan of like ditch Intel, let's get off the Intel train as quick as possible, I'm still like, okay, I'm not going to buy a new computer and switch to that if it ends up in my workflow being slowed down. That's just kind of difficult to justify. So yeah, I'm not planning on switching my iMac Pro out with a computer with worse export times. Should I just get the iPad Pro or wait for the next iPad Pro? Did you give me any more background than that? I want this iPhone 13. I have the 12 Pro. Okay. If you're... I don't know what you need this iPad for exactly, but if you're in the market for an iPad Pro, it's been out for a while now, so I'll just say at least look for some sales. Best Buy probably has some discounts, or 9 to 5 Toys might tweet out. Amazon has them on sale sometimes. So just don't pay like full retail price for them, given it's been out for how long now? I guess it's not been that long. They came out in April. So 5 months? 4 months? I guess they're not that old. You'll probably not get a new iPad Pro until like October of next year. So you could still buy one now. They don't typically get refreshed every 12 months. I don't really see that being changed this time. So I'm still predicting about a 18-month refresh cycle. So we got new ones in April. We'll probably get new ones in October of next year, not this year. So you've got time, I guess. Let's see, eBird, that's what I'm thinking since September 20. I love how the latency on stream chat was so much better on your iPad mini than now. Yeah, but the compression was a whole lot worse. There's some pros and cons to streaming on the iPad mini. The latency was extremely low, but the YouTube mobile app caps out the live stream at 720p, and because it's not connected to the internet over Ethernet, I'm not even I know you can do that through the USB-C port, but I'm not sure if it would make that big a difference with YouTube anyway. So for whatever reason, this live stream setup is far more stable. Starlink's doing pretty good today, fairly little lag as of now. Or take Drew's advice and go Apple refurbished for an 11-inch iPad Pro. That would also be a good idea. If you need the Pros for some specific reason, ask yourself if you really need an M1 chip and if you really need center stage or mini LED. Maybe you do, I don't know. But if you don't need those things and you're just looking for a general media consumption device and you want 120 hertz and Face ID, like I want those things, then yeah, go for a refurbished 11-inch. You can get some really, really good deals on that. The M1 iPad was refreshed after only about 12 months, but yeah, usually it's about 18. I typically say it's over 12. Technically, the 2020 iPad Pros came out in March, and then these new ones came out like end of April. So it was a little over 12 months, but yeah. How is using your 12 mini after using 120 hertz? Well, to be honest, I haven't used my 12 mini much since I've switched. Now my 12 mini just feels laggy and small. It feels like an iPod. I have it here because I'm, in the process of selling it. But few people have asked to buy it so far. Still want a lower-end refreshed Apple Cinema display to connect to MacBook? Yeah, Max, I do too. I'd be super in the market for an external display because at this point I'm unsure what the fate of my iMac Pro will be if I end up upgrading to the MacBook Pro this year. We're planning a lot of trips and probably going to be away from home for a lot of next year. So if that ends up being the case, I don't know if I want to keep the iMac Pro or if I want to sell it. I haven't decided either way. But if I do sell it, and there's times, of course, where I am working from home, I certainly want an external monitor to dock with my MacBook. And I gave my friend that BenQ HDR monitor. But Pro Display is beautiful, but just far too expensive. I think its technology is fairly dated by now, too, because Mini LED has been ramped for iPads and Macs now. It's likely only a matter of time until they get Mini LED tech into an external monitor, which doesn't have a battery to worry about or weight problems. So I know that the components and the chip shortages will probably impact how quickly they can just throw out an external monitor with Mini LED. But yeah, it's probably very easy to just I mean, obviously you could buy a Pro Display now, but they are still like just as expensive used as they are new. And I feel like given they can fit all of the same peak brightness and all of the same contrast ratio and dynamic range of the Pro Display, pretty much identical specifications in the iPad Pro, which is $1,100, and it comes with, a battery, cameras, and a whole computer versus a dedicated monitor. Like, they've got to be on the cusp. There's got to be technology now that allows you to achieve the same specs as the Pro Display for far cheaper. It's just a matter of when Apple feels like actually designing that thing. Would you upgrade to iPhone 14 mini with 120 hertz if released next year? No. I'm thinking I'm going to stay true to my word on this one. I really don't need to upgrade for a while. And for the first time in a long time, I'm debating upgrading at all next year because just the 13 Pro Max is so good. And I've said it all year. 120 hertz was kind of one of those last things I really, really noticed and care about. And the iPhone 12 mini, I genuinely did not have many complaints with. If you go back and watch my last day with the iPhone 12 mini video where I talked about my ownership experience after 10 months. That was a great phone, and there was really not much wrong with it. I did not have many complaints with the 12 mini. The camera was fantastic. The display was great. It just wasn't 120 hertz. I don't care about the notch getting smaller, or I don't care about a punch hole camera. And right now, I'm having this internal debate on whether or not I care about an improved cinematic mode or improved ProRes recording. I'm leaning towards not caring though at this point. Like if I had to make a gut decision, if someone drew a gun, Drew, are you going to upgrade next year? Yes or no? I'd say no, because I've done several videos now that I filmed entirely with my iPhone 13 with cinematic mode turned on, and I got lots of mixed results. I did not get overly negative feedback. In fact, I got a lot of people saying, I thought this looked better than your Blackmagic camera, and a lot of people saying I could tell it wasn't, but it's still very good, and some people saying, yeah, it's not quite as good. You know, it was a mixed reaction. It was like a toss-up, basically, of people saying like, well, yeah, you could have fooled me. I was actually debating whether or not I wanted to film a whole video just with cinematic mode because I wasn't sure how obvious it would be. So I decided I'm not going to bring it up in the video until near the end. And then I do bring it up at the end. But when I was editing it, I was like, oh my God, it's so obvious. Like everybody's going to know. It's going to become abundantly clear from the first 2 seconds. So I posted the video, and then I actually got a very large number of comments saying, I didn't know it was cinematic mode until you told me. Like a lot of people thought, oh, it's just a normal tech video. They didn't think anything of it. So when that was the reaction I got for cinematic mode, I have kind of learned a few things from this experience of like, okay, can you do YouTube videos with your iPhone camera? And the answer is still relatively the same as what it always has been. You can do it, but it's not, of course, even with cinematic mode, even with ProRes, it's still not going to be as good as a dedicated camera, but it's very hard to notice the difference unless people are actively looking for it. Or people who do notice it don't seem to mind it that much. Like I did a whole video shot in cinematic mode, and there weren't like a ton of complaints about the video quality. There weren't a ton of people saying, ew, this looks bad. It was like, oh, okay, it's kind of different, but it works. And when I saw that reaction, I was like, okay, why am I going to get hung up on 1080 at 30 versus 4K at 60 if I'm using this as a backup, right? I don't think the iPhone 13 or even the iPhone 14 are going to get so good at cinematic mode or ProRes recording. I don't think either of them are going to be so dang good that I need to get rid of my Blackmagic camera and stop recording, because currently in its present state, the bigger problem with cinematic mode is getting it off the frickin' phone. That's the biggest dilemma, because it takes a long time for the phone to process the video. Even if I airdrop it to the iPad, it still has to go through this very... Okay, here's Starlink lagging. Come on. You can do it. Come back, come back, come back. Give it a second. You can do it. Come on, Dishy. You can do it. I believe in you. Well, I do have some stuff playing in the background. I guess I should turn these off. That might be part of the problem. I have a lot of devices on Wi-Fi today. I just realized everything's using the same Wi-Fi. Sorry for that. Sorry about that. Should be stable now. Anyway, what I was trying to say was, if I'm using my phone as a backup, in other words, I'm in a situation where I can't set up my Blackmagic, or I'm in a rush, or I'm on a vacation or something, but I need to film a video and the iPhone is my fallback, I don't know if I need to care much about whether or not it's 60 frames a second or whether or not it's 4K if I'm using my phone to post a video. At the end of the day, if I'm recording on a phone, the end goal should be, does it look good or not? So I'm pretty confident, the iPhone 14, the only feature that I'm somewhat tempted to upgrade for would be like a 4K at 60 cinematic mode. I don't have much interest in 4K at 30 or 1080 at 60. Like, I want 4K at 60 or nothing. Mike Sparks says, are you going to film a video in cinematic again or stick to the Blackmagic or a little bit of both? As of now, I'm thinking a little bit of both. I kind of want to intermix the two to see how noticeable it is for people, to see how badly it annoys people, I guess. Tim says, I only noticed it because it maxed out at 1080p instead of your usual 4K at 60. It was pretty noticeable after realization, but still pretty good. What if they do USB-C on next year's phone? Would that be an upgrade for you? No, I don't think so, just because I want USB-C on the iPhone for the record, but I am very, very portless at this point. I hardly ever use the Lightning connector as is, and I pretty much do everything over MagSafe. The battery life on the Pro Max is so dang good. Like, I went 2 days without charging, and of course, whenever I do need to charge or do something with the phone, I just drop it on the MagSafe. But I guess USB-C, unless they upgrade it from USB 2, wouldn't make that big a difference for importing files. If it ends up resulting in like way better import times and I can import ProRes video into a Mac really, really quick. But the problem is I tried to do that now with cinematic mode, where I plugged in my iPhone to my iMac. I was like, okay, let's see if this bypasses that long AirDrop process with a 13-minute video. And when I imported it into Final Cut, it didn't have any of the blur. It wasn't cinematic mode anymore. So when I did a wired import, it didn't preserve the bokeh. So it kind of defeated the purpose of trying to film in cinematic. So if USB-C doesn't fix that problem, it's still kind of pointless to me. Like I would have bought the 13 Pro Max if it didn't have a port. Like, that's not a big issue to me. I still understand that most people aren't ready to go portless, but I'm ready personally. I don't think it's the right decision for Apple financially, but I do think I'm comfortable living without the port. That Lightning cable could not be there, and I'd be fine. Zachary Allen says, are you thinking about upgrading your iPad Pro anytime soon? Can't remember if you said you still have the 11-inch from 2018. No, I never had the 11-inch. I have the 12.9-inch Pro from 2018. And no, I genuinely don't see any point in upgrading it as long as iPadOS is in its current state. Now, because of ProRes coming to iPadOS now, it has made me regret getting rid of my... What did I just hear? Okay, nothing going on outside. I thought I heard something. Maybe a bird just landed on the roof. I don't know what. It would be USB 4. It would be. In that case, I don't know. It would just depend on how good the ProRes is, I suppose. Overall, with my iPad Pro, like there's no really point in upgrading it, even though it's 3 years old now, as long as iPadOS is in its current state. I wanted ProRes support back when I was reviewing the M1 iPad Pro, because I was like, okay, if I could edit ProRes, I could justify an expense like this, because I could say, now I have a mobile editing machine that can handle the Blackmagic footage that I record in. And now the reason I don't plan on buying it again, I had that thought several times, because I brought that up on the podcast. People were like, well, if you regret returning it, then just buy it again. The reason I'm not is because we are so close to new MacBook Pros that I don't need a mobile editing station in iPad form and also a mobile workstation in laptop form, in like Mac form. I don't need both. I need one or the other. But now that we're so close to MacBook Pro, I know that I can edit with Final Cut on that, and I can do the OBS live streams on that, so they can be a lot more stable. So basically, the capability of the MacBook Pro is far greater. Plus, I'm super duper interested in the M1X chip. So I guess my initial plan would have been buy like M1X Mac Mini and then buy an iPad Pro for mobile editing. But now that we're so close to MacBooks, I feel like that's dumb. I should just buy one product that can do both, and I'll just buy a MacBook that can be faster than my iMac Pro, and I can also take it with me on trips if I need to. Let's see, just like flat watchers, you have not thought out your wants other than to look pretty. I like that expression, flat watchers. That's a fun terminology. This is a bit of an out-of-topic question, but are you a full-time YouTuber? Yep, I've been full-time for over 4 years now. I was doing YouTube videos long before I was full-time, but I made the switch to full-time in May of 20... Was it 17? Yeah, May of 2017. So now it's September, coming up on October. That's almost 4.5 years, I guess. Yeah, Apple's global security team found me. You portless iPhone guys drive me nuts. I'm not saying ditch the port to make it look pretty. I'm just saying ditch the port because I don't do anything with it. It's kind of useless. Let's see. Good point. I almost feel like Apple is trying to backpedal. Oh, you retracted it. Okay. Is that a Series 3 you're wearing? Yes. Okay. I guess the cat's out of the bag. There's enough people that have seen me with the watch. I'll reveal it to everybody watching the stream, I guess. This is your exclusive access. I have sold my Series 6. So in the past, I told people that I was maybe in the market for a Series 7, but I would only get a Series 7 if I could get a good deal on my Series 6. And I found someone who was willing to pay me a decent amount for it. And I sold it because I wanted to basically sell the 6 before the resale values got lower. And I knew that if the Series 7 came out, Series 6 resale values would go down. Currently, the Series 7 is not available. You can't even pre-order the thing. So I know that if I sold my Series 6 right now, it's still technically the latest Apple Watch. So people are willing to pay more for it. So I had a certain goal in mind of how much I wanted to get, and I got a little bit more than that. So I was like, okay, good enough. So now that it's been sold, I'm definitely getting a 7. Don't need 2 mobile editing stations? Well, poop, not with that good attitude, sir. It's just too much redundancy. I'm okay with the idea of having 2 editing stations, but 2 mobile editing stations feels a little silly. Like having one editing machine that I can take with me on trips and stuff, and then having one that's more powerful that I leave at home. That I can justify, but 2 that I can take with me, what am I going to do with that? Like, oh, I just feel like editing on the iPad today. Oh, now I feel like editing on the Mac. Like, I sold it locally. You even remember what color band is that? Truly OG reviewer and Apple Sheep. Wait, which one? What are you talking about? I even remember what color? Oh, are people... Tahoe Blue Band. Oh, I see. People remember Tahoe Blue. Yeah, you guys are loyal sheep. So I've been using the Series 3 because I sold my Series 6 and I very quickly was like, oh, my wrist feels so weird. Like there's nothing on it. I've been so used to having a watch. And then my wife was like, well, just use mine. Because she was wearing this. And I was like, really? That's your watch? You can keep wearing it. It's okay. And she was like, no, I don't want to wear it anyway. So she was kind of like fed up with the Apple Watch as is. So she was like, you can use it. I don't care. I don't need it. And I set it up and everything, and it's on watchOS 8. So I plan on doing a video talking about using the Series 3 in 2021, since it does technically still run the latest watchOS. And it's not very good. I'll be honest. It's pretty crappy. What is the % chance that the iPhone 14 Pro will look like all the leaks, or at least most of them? 3%, maybe 1%. They've almost never been... I can't recall a single time in history where an iPhone leak has been accurate like 12 months in advance. Like, seriously, every single leak that's that far away ends up being way off. Like, time and time again. After following iPhone leaks for years, I can say very confidently, like, 12 months before the iPhone 10 came out, that was way off. 12 months before the iPhone 11 came out, those were way off. The 12s even were fairly inaccurate. There was a lot of inaccuracies 12 months in advance, which is why any of the leaks or renders right now of the iPhone 14, just don't get your expectations assuming that's what it's going to be. Very, very wrong. Does selling your tech in person feel like illegal black alley deals? No, I actually feel more uncomfortable selling it online. I don't know why some people think that's somehow more secure. There's far more issues involved. I've heard way too many stories. For those curious why I don't sell my stuff online, is because I've run into way too many issues where, not me personally, but I've heard way too many stories where people are like, I shipped it and then the carrier lost it, or the person received it and then pretended they didn't receive it, and then I got flagged on my account and I didn't get paid. And there's all of these complications I've heard with Amazon and eBay and Swap, like all of these problems I've heard people run into of like, I sold it online and then this happened and then the carrier did this and then they did this. And it's far more simple to me to just, for one, I don't live in a huge city, so it's a pretty local area. I've never had a problem selling stuff locally. Everyone's always been super duper friendly. The Series 6 was no exception. Yeah, like putting your expensive tech in a box and putting a label on it and shipping it out before you received payment, that feels way more sketchy to me. When you just show up to the person, typically I bring someone else with me, not for protection, but just to like, as a witness, you know, like they tell Louise, like, you know, call the police if the guy starts mugging me, or, you know, we meet in a public place. We don't meet in a back alley or anything. We meet in a place typically with lots of people. In this case, we met in a parking lot that was fairly busy. So it was a grocery store parking lot. There were a lot of people there. Again, I live in a fairly small city. There's not a ton of people that live here. So when I post it online, let people know, they reach out, they say, okay, I'll meet you there at this time. We meet up. He's got cash. We can check the cash, hold it up to the light, hand him the watch. And we're like, okay, done deal. Enjoy. And we go about our day. I've done that probably 15 or 20 times now, and I've never had a problem. I want straight cash or digital payment. For whatever reason, we've never done the digital payment thing just because we're worried about back charges and that kind of thing. It's kind of hard to back charge cash. Let's see. I got my Series 6 because my Series 3 had gotten so terribly slow and just frustrating to use. I'm baffled they still sell the Series 3. I am too, genuinely. Like, seriously, I remember thinking it was crazy for them to keep the Series 3 last year. And here we are. They're taking it into 2022. It's ridiculous. I do all my deals at abandoned scrap yards. Makes me feel like Heisenberg. That's good. I should show up with a fedora and glasses at all my sales. What are the chances that the iPhone 14 Pro will get a redesign of some kind, whether or not the notch... Oh, you retracted the message just as I read it. I would say don't get your hopes up, because Apple has basically done nothing with the notch ever since introducing it. We just now got a notch reduction, and it's a very slight one. They went from full-size notch to 25%, 20% smaller, and it even is a tad taller. It cuts into content a little bit more. So I wouldn't really consider that of, okay, Apple's on a mission to get rid of the notch next year. It's like, I don't think that's the next move. I mean, it's been rumored. There's been Quo and Ross Young and Prosser and lots of people saying like camera hole iPhone coming in 2022. But this far in advance, nothing's accurate. So Ross Young in particular, I would point people to, because he was the one basically that I was quoting last year when I said the iPhone 12 Pro and Pro Max would not get 120 hertz. And everyone was disagreeing with me. I remember posting a video saying 120 hertz not coming on the 12 Pro. And all the comments were, Drew, it's been confirmed. Everyone just confirmed this. I just watched a video. Someone said it would have 120 hertz. I got all these comments about, everything Apple Pro or Front Page Tech. Everyone's saying, no, 120 hertz. It's been confirmed, Drew. What are you saying? Of course it's going to have it. And I was like, guys, this is a supply chain analyst, and he's saying it's not possible. They don't have the hardware. It's not going to make it. And everyone kept disagreeing with me. No, Drew, you wait and see. It'll actually have it. And then all of that hope, all of that excitement people gained for nothing, because obviously they did not get 120 hertz. So I sense a similar thing happening with the punch hole camera. The only difference here is I don't care about the punch hole camera. I've used phones with camera holes, and I've used phones with big old notches. It's not that different. I don't think it changes the way you use your phone, and I really don't think it adds much, especially seeing that Apple shrunk the size of the notch now and did nothing. They didn't include battery percentage. They didn't put some more data up there. They did nothing about that. Makes me think that they don't really care much about this notch thing. Personally, I think it's kind of the end of an era if they go with the punch hole method, because that's when iPhones look like every other phone. They will suddenly blend in with all Androids, and it'll become increasingly difficult to tell the difference. So I'm kind of in no rush. As soon as they remove the notch or camera hole, we're just going to get the carrier name back in the corner 24/7, which I don't care about. And I don't really care about the battery percentage coming back. That's not a feature that makes a big difference to me. I'm just like, if your battery's good, you don't need to know the exact percentage. Just look at the icon. You'll know if it's somewhere in the middle or if it's full or if it's low. Like, I don't need all that information up there. If Apple ditches the notch, it would be only on the 14 Pro models. Yeah, this is what I'm saying. They said the same thing at about 120 hertz last year. No, we're just talking on the Pros, and then it doesn't happen. Seems kind of awkward to reduce the notch after so long and then remove it after a year. Yeah, that seems a little too good to be true. Typically, Apple doesn't rush into new specky technology like that. Unpopular opinion, notches won't change next year. For the record, I don't think that's even an opinion. I think that's more of a prediction. But I agree with you, and I don't think it's that unpopular. You know, there were a lot of people that were doubtful that the notch would get smaller this year because we were hearing all the same things about the iPhone 12. I remember tons of renders and leakers claiming that the notch would get smaller on the 12 series, and then that didn't happen. So they were rightfully skeptical about the iPhone 13 getting a smaller notch. Now that it's been confirmed, they're like, okay, fine, I get it. But I think a lot of people are going to be skeptical about camera cutout changes for the most part. Which I think people are making out to be a bigger deal than it really is. I think it's absolutely I think it's totally a tech community thing. I don't think it's an average consumer thing. Everyday people aren't going to care about notch versus camera hole. It's not going to look that different. You're not going to use your phone that differently. You think Apple would actually do a punch hole cutout on a future iPhone? Well, I don't think fundamentally they have anything against it. It's probably just a supply chain thing. Can they get enough of those displays at a certain price point that they can secure their profit margins? The great thing is that everyone in a lot of stores have it, so it is basically the standard payment service in the country, and when the money has been sent, there is no way to get them back. Wait, what are you talking about? In Sweden, we have something called Swish, where you can send and receive money instantly via the phone number. Well, we kind of have that via Apple Pay Cash and that sort of thing. Do you care about 8K shooting? Not personally. This is just the Drew pessimistic stream. I was actually really excited to talk about iPad Air 5 at the beginning. I was like, what could they do with the Air 5 to make it more interesting? And, you know, I've been defending the iPad mini all day. I don't think the jelly effect is as big a deal as people say it is. It's still a great iPad, and I absolutely would recommend it to a bunch of people. But all the questions you guys keep asking are on subjects I don't have much interest in. I've shot things at 8K, and I have quickly realized it's overkill and unnecessary. Pixels do not instantly mean good. More pixels does not instantly result in a better image. I say this because I've shot a lot of stuff now on a red Komodo that my friend got, and we've filmed a lot of stuff with it, and that has had some of the greatest color science and some of the greatest motion capture and just overall most high-quality production camera I've ever used, and that's 6K. That doesn't shoot at 8K. And I've played those images at full resolution on my iMac Pro and seen all the crazy detail, and I'm like, 8K is pointless. Like, at a certain point, you can't even notice the difference with 8K until after, like, a 60-inch screen. And most people do not watch things on 60-inch screen. So I don't... 8K is a lot extra work on the CPU. It results in a lot more storage being consumed. So it's just... I don't care about it. I'm far more interested in ProRes recording on the iPhone than 8K because the quality of the pixels being recorded matters a lot more than how many pixels there are. Do you think the Series 7 rumored square will come back for 8, or do you think it's been scrapped to keep a consistent iconographic icon? What are you trying to say? Consistent iconography? I've never heard this word. I don't think the squared watch is going to come back personally, especially if you guys are convinced that the squared watch is coming. I encourage you to go back and rewatch the Series 7 unveil. They specifically point towards the fact that it's rounded and more curved. They're like bragging about how rounded the new Apple Watch is. And they're bragging about how the display spills over the sides, which I don't know why they would be drawing attention to that or bragging about that if they were planning on scrapping the whole rounded approach next year. I think it's possible they tested it and discovered it was pretty good, but the actual Series 7 design was better, and they got better, what do you call, market response. Like, they tested it with people, and more people preferred the actual Series 7 design, so they went with that. August Amberson said, what camera are you using? Yeah, Imac Pro. I'm using the Imac Pro webcam. I used the Cam Link for a while, and then I used this, and then I asked what people preferred, and most people preferred this. Yeah, Yihirasawa is like so soft and round. Like, they're bragging about how not square it is. Try working or working out with a square watch. I personally think there's a way you can do it where it's comfortable, but I believe that the actual Series 7 design was the intended design long time ago. I personally do not believe that they scrapped the squared off design at the very last second because of a manufacturing problem and then decided to make the Series 7 what it actually is. I think that was the intention from the get-go. How do you feel about the scaling on the iPad mini, though? Like the icons, etc.? I've seen mixed feelings about it. Yeah, there's a lot of padding in the OS, and I think it has something to do with the aspect ratio. This is a very tall aspect ratio for the iPad. It's a taller aspect ratio than even the 11-inch iPad Pro. And that results in there being like a lot of empty spaces around the edges and text having to be fairly small. And you get a lot of this buffer zone. I don't know, like, I've seen people say, like, why can't the apps just go right to the edge? But then I think there's certain things that people think sounds good in their mind, and then they try it out. If you actually saw what that would look like, it would actually start to become overwhelming. And people, I think people don't quite realize that if you stretched all these apps to go right to the edge, it might not look as good either. Like, I think Apple, of course, tried different layouts and tried different optimizations and decided that this one was the best. But, yeah, I don't know. It's not a deal breaker, but it definitely feels like some apps weren't designed to be, you know, especially in like split screen on a display this size. It sounds obvious in hindsight, but when I'm trying it out, I'm like, you know, this is smaller. I've been so used to having a 12.9-inch iPad that when I've used this now for more stuff like Twitter and Discord, I'll be in the middle of using it and I'll be like, I can't put as much content on the display. I mean, like, yeah, it's you know, it's portable and it's compact and it's a lot easier to hold and it's far lighter, but simultaneously it's like, yeah, I can't read as much of the Discord channels at the same time, and Twitter feels more cut off, and picture-in-picture doesn't show up in video as well. So, yeah, it's that's, I guess, a compromise you have to take. I guess after reviewing the iPad mini, I guess I somewhat understand why a lot of people still don't opt for this size. Like, I'm a fan of this size, and I want them to make more iPad minis in the future and iPhone minis as well. I think that's a underserved demographic, but I don't think I'm in that demographic, you know. After reviewing it, and I guess I haven't filmed the review, but after using it for a while, I'm like, you know, I think if I could only have one iPad, this probably wouldn't be it. Just because I like having more screen real estate to choose from when I'm using multiple apps and stuff. Let's see. I just noticed that you don't have a custom YouTube URL. Are there plans to add one? Yeah, I do. Which custom URL are you trying? I think it's in my, yeah, it's in my Twitter bio. I have a youtube.com/TailosiveTech. If I click on that, yeah, it works. It takes me right there. You're not looking in the right place. What custom URL were you expecting? Let's see. The whole theme of iOS 15 looks narrower. Really? All of iOS? Only thing stopping me from getting the 13 is that I have the 12, so I'm hoping for a redesign for the 14 of some sort. Wouldn't count on it, considering Apple typically waits around 3 years before design refreshes, so I don't know much of what they would change design-wise next year. All that sounds roughly believable to me is them introducing a cheaper, larger model. Quo mentioned that a while back, and I was like, that sounds right. I don't like, because I always encourage people to do this. I'm always like, don't just blindly believe every rumor you hear. Don't just instantly believe any leak you hear and say, okay, that must be real. It must be true. Compare it to reality and ask yourself if it makes sense. I think that's probably the bigger issue I had with the iPhone 14 Pro leaks, is I was like, okay, Apple's been increasing the size of the camera bump literally every single year for 7 years. And they have literally never shown any sign of trying to go the opposite way. Pretty much every single year, the camera bump just gets bigger and bigger and larger and larger and larger. So the idea that suddenly after 7 years, they would suddenly completely remove it and it would be gone, that doesn't line up for me. Like, that is like, I don't care if that came from a reliable leaker or it came from an unreliable leaker. It just doesn't necessarily sound like something Apple would do, which is, I guess, why I say, like, look at things with a certain amount of skepticism, especially if Apple's been very complacent with the notch and they've clearly not been in a rush to get rid of it. They've had it for 3 years now. They've slightly shrunk it, but it's still basically a notch at the end of the day. Oh, hey, Ben, thank you for the super chat. So yeah, basically just look at things with, like, if there's a leak that says Apple's going to have, you know, an iPhone event on a Friday in February, probably don't believe it. Okay, Ben says, I want to go all in on minis. I want an iPhone mini, iPad mini, have a newer iMac, but if I were to get a new computer, Mac mini. Heck, I would even get an Apple Watch mini. What would an Apple Watch mini be? Is that just like a Fitbit, like a really narrow display or something? iPhone 11 is in iPhone SE 2022. I don't think so. I think that would sell too well. I read somewhere, maybe it was Quo, but I read someone say that the iPhone SE coming next would launch in the spring. Oh, that could also be at a spring event. New iPhone SE, iPad Air 5, and a larger size iMac, all released at the same time. That would be kind of interesting. The new iPhone SE is going to be basically the same design, but with a newer chip and 5G. I think those are the only rumored changes, but the same LCD, still a home button, still Touch ID, still one camera. They just want a cheap 5G. Apple event on a Sunday in July. Yeah, don't buy that one. Let's see. What can they add to the iPhone 14 next year? I don't think I need more than the iPhone 13. Probably not a ton of game-changing stuff. I mean, there's always room for battery life improvements, display improvements, water resistance improvements, camera improvements. The biggest one on my list would be they could improve cinematic mode to work at 4K at 60 or ProRes to work at 4K at 60. That's going to take up so much storage. Oh my God. The other thing they might do that's been alluded to, but not obviously nothing's confirmed right now. But the other thing that was alluded to was bringing 120 hertz to the entry level models. I'm not sure if they want to do that. They probably haven't even decided. So it's ridiculous for us to say, like, what's Apple going to do? It's like, they don't know. I know people like to say, like, they've been working on these things for years and years and years, but it's like, yeah, but when you enter mass production, that's when things get more finalized. Before mass production, there's a lot of things that can change. You're in talks with suppliers, you're in talks with different companies. What sensors, what displays can you offer? What can you build and for what price? They're pricing everything out. That's why I would say nothing's final until they start the mass production process. But the notch makes the iPhone very identifiable. Without it, how would you directly see it's an iPhone? I think it's already kind of a difficult thing to identify. There's a lot of Android phones that had notches, but if you know what you're looking for, I guess, you can spot an iPhone notch, but at the same time, you could say that about the cameras on the back. You can just notice from the Apple logo or the camera layout. But Mr. Ash, thank you for the super chat. Sup, what are some podcasts you enjoy? Honestly, I've been working so much, I haven't had much time to listen to podcasts. I know. I feel bad. I should probably have some to recommend. I record lots of podcasts. I'm working on a movie review one with Mike. We're doing the tech podcast and EV podcast tomorrow. I've done a few talks podcasts with my friends and my wife and my dad and my father-in-law over on Tailosive Talks. So check those out if you want to get to know me better. But man, I really haven't been listening to much podcasts. I listened to I watch Warren Redlick's live streams. Those are kind of like podcasts. I watch Dirty Tesla. I watch MQBHD. Sometimes I tune into the Waveform podcast, but I haven't been keeping up with those. I'm sorry. I wish I had a... Oh, he says, I enjoy both of yours and Gus and Eddie. Oh, yeah, Gus and Eddie are hilarious. I haven't listened to their show in a while, but I'm a huge Gus Johnson fan. And I've had a few people say I look like him, which I consider a compliment. Talman Murphy Jr., Vertical Archaeology, says, howdy from sunny Riverside, Alabama. Wow. Howdy back to Riverside. 120 hertz on the entry level wouldn't make sense as there would be less stuff to make entry and pro different. I know, but that's kind of the difficult question. I know it's easy to say, no, they couldn't make that phone too good because then there wouldn't be enough differences. But look at the iPhone 12 and 12 Pro. There was so little differences between those two, in my opinion. It was like LiDAR and the telephoto lens in steel. That was mostly it. I mean, you got a few extra gigs of RAM, but that didn't make that big a difference, in my opinion. I didn't notice a difference. Like, I was on the 12 mini with 4 gigs of RAM all this time. Now I'm on the 13 Pro Max with 6 gigs of RAM. Haven't noticed. I've actually been very shocked with how many apps will stay running in the background on my 12 mini. I'll open an app I haven't used in like a day and it's still there. I'm like, I don't think the RAM makes that big a difference. But they were comfortable selling those two phones, which were very similar. And the 12 Pro still sold really, really well. Sometimes it's a good idea to make the entry-level models and the Pro models very close because then people are like, well, I was going to get the entry-level iPhone, but it's so close in price to the Pro. I think I'll just go for the Pro. They almost kind of serve the purpose of making the Pros feel like a better deal and kind of vice versa. It's somewhat like when you have entry-level iPhones and Pro iPhones, makes people go, wow, these iPhones do all this, but this iPhone's $200 cheaper and it does mostly the same stuff, so I'll just get that. Yeah, LiDAR is a thing, and it's mostly pointless. I still don't get the point. I've never used LiDAR on my iPhone 13, and I probably never will. Take care, Variety Entertainment. Have a good day. Do you think that the iPhone will ever get a 4K OLED to play back what the cameras can shoot? No, because the person couldn't tell the difference. Smartphones went to 4K displays and no one cared, and it makes the CPU and the GPU work way harder, and it eats into your battery life, especially now that we have 120 hertz. So if you add a ton of pixels to something that people can't really notice or appreciate, it's hurting you more than it's helping you. So the purpose of shooting 4K video on the phone is not to just watch it back at 4K. I think that's why still to this day, if you set up an iPhone, it's default 1080p. I don't think it defaults to 4K. It's meant to be a resolution that you film at so that when you play it on another screen, whether it's on an Apple TV or you edit it on a Mac, then you're getting more detail. It's not meant to be like, we're not getting ProRes video so that we can watch ProRes video on our phones. I can tell you pretty confidently, you're not going to notice a difference between a normal iPhone recorded video and a ProRes video on the iPhone display itself. You're really only going to see the difference once you take it off the phone and start editing it somewhere else. Let's see. What's the next background going to be? Do you have anything in mind? You mean like wallpaper? I still want macOS Weed. I thought that would have been hilarious. Let's see. LiDAR is used passively on night mode. I think it's only used when you do portrait mode night mode shots, but I've done those and they look terrible. I did them on the 12 Pro Max at least. I haven't done any night mode portrait shots on the 13 Pro Max. The only night mode shots I've done are of the sky, so I know for a fact LiDAR isn't doing anything there because I don't care if it's going off or not. It's still not doing anything because you can get those same night mode shots on the regular iPhone 13 and 13 mini, and they don't have LiDAR. So, as I'm an augmented reality entrepreneur, I care a lot about LiDAR. For your specific use case, it makes sense. I've seen people bring that up. They're like, I work in augmented reality or I do 3D modeling. For that specific market, I understand the appeal to LiDAR, but if we're talking what earlier when we were talking about LiDAR versus not having LiDAR, people were saying, that was listed as a difference between the iPhone 12 and 12 Pro. Well, with the Pro, you get LiDAR. It's like, okay, unless you fall in this very hyper-specific market, LiDAR is useless. All black wallpaper on home screen, something colorful on lock screen. Huh. I really want to get a Mac OS weed. That would be funny. Well, Apple did have an event on 420. So, come on. Like, they can embrace that. They joked about it during some event, but it seems to always be California landmarks. What else could we be? Mac OS La Mesa. I bet Randy would lose his mind for that one. Night mode portrait is really good. I have been unimpressed because in my experience, if you're taking a portrait shot at nighttime, your subject has to be relatively close to the camera, right? You're not taking portrait shots of things really, really far away. So if you're doing a portrait shot and it's dark, use the flash. You're going to get way more light from that, and the iPhone does a pretty good job at balancing the colors out. If you're worried about the flash washing out stuff, you can boost saturation. And in my experience, it looked far better to just use the flash. Mac OS San Francisco. That would work. Mac OS Sea Lion. They never did that, huh? Mac OS Black Mesa. Ooh, I like that one. That's a good idea. Let's see. For people in real estate, I could see how that'd be a great thing. I know a lot of people in real estate, but I don't know anyone that uses the LiDAR. I have family members that work in 3D scanning and like 360 videos of houses that they are documenting for real estate. What's it called? Brokers? No, real estate companies. I can't remember the word. There's a specific term. Realtors? Is that the word? I don't know. There is a town of Weed, California. I know. I've been there. I've literally been to Weed. They really embrace it. I actually went there this year when I helped my parents move out of state. We drove through Weed and we got gas there. And they've got all the signs everywhere. They say, I love Weed and, been to Weed. Unfortunately, they had a really bad wildfire go through there. But so hopefully no one was hurt. I don't know actually if anybody was. So I feel bad for anyone who was hurt, but simultaneously, like, assuming nobody lost their lives and, insurance paid out for people who lost their homes, they blazed it. It was on fire. I've been through Weed multiple times, yeah. My photos come out horrible on my 12 Pro Max. Oh, no. Do you think Apple Glass unveiling will happen in 2022 or 2023 or later? At this point, later. I feel like I've gotten way too excited about Apple Glass far too many times, so I'm just going to assume it's far further out than we think it is. Every animal in California got high that day. Everybody. I'm using Tahoe Blue on my watch band. Brandon says, you think they have anything useful in mind for LiDAR and phones in the future? Still weird to use it as a marketing point, though. The only logical explanation I've heard is that they're trying to train LiDAR sensors with the iPhone camera so that the LiDAR sensors are prepared for Apple Glass. I know that LiDAR helps with augmented reality stuff, but I feel like people don't use that very much. I think the take rate on AR demos is not very high. I don't see that many people like playing AR games or like, I want to see what this furniture looks like in my living room. Like we always talk about that in commercials and in the tech community, but how many people are actually doing that? I feel like it's probably less than 1%, but they're just assuming that if we have all this LiDAR data and we have all of these augmented reality apps that take advantage of the LiDAR sensor, that way when Apple Glass rolls out, it'll have far more use cases and a big app market of experiences that can take advantage of it. I don't know. Could it still be a good time to buy Mac Pro here in October when I need a good, very strong computer now, or is it a bad time to buy Mac Pro if we think a new type of Mac Pros are coming out early 2023? Well, Tim Cook fairly reliable leaker here. Mr. Tim Cook said that all of their Macs would be converted to Apple Silicon within 2 years. Now, we've debated long before if he meant 2 years from the day they announced Apple Silicon or 2 years from the day they introduced Apple Silicon with the M1 chip. But let's assume it's 2 years from when they introduced it. That would mean that there's no more Intel Macs by the end of 2022. So if you can hold out, Electric Eyes, I really, really would encourage you to, because it's basically confirmed. I'm very hesitant to use that word, but when Apple says that they're going to switch all their Macs to their own silicon within 2 years, I think that means you should expect a Mac Pro of some kind to come out sometime in 2022, not early 2023. There has been some talk about Apple still refreshing the Intel Mac Pro and offering a smaller, cheaper Apple Silicon Mac Pro that's less customizable. It's not modular. It's not upgradable. It's basically like a beefed up Mac Mini that'll cost, $4,000 or $5,000, but it'll have amazing performance, possibly better. Well, yeah, almost for sure better performance than the 2019 Mac Pro. So if we knew that was happening, then I would really try to avoid buying one right now if you can, or at least buy one certified refurbished. There is a ton of certified refurbished Mac Pros. Whatever happened to the augmented reality Minecraft they demoed? It came out, the take rate was super low, and they got rid of it. Basically, they demonstrated it during an event as a showcase of how great AR is, and then Mojang or Microsoft closed it because barely anybody was using it. So I'll send some pictures on Discord. Without it, I don't think it would have looked this good. What I encourage you to do is do some night mode portrait shots with the flash, and then do some with night mode and compare the two. How do you like the chair you're using? I need a more comfortable chair for working at home. Well, this is the PewDiePie chair. It's rather pricey, but it's actually kind of squeaky, and it's been falling apart on me more recently, though I have had it for like almost 4 years now. So it's getting kind of old. Just a little part of the armrest is like crumbling. I've had little components of it break, but I've also been pretty, hard on it. It's gone through several big moves, and I've had a lot of people sit in it and like rattle it around, and like I have not been gentle with it. I think if I had to buy another chair, I would buy likely a lighter one. I'm a PewDiePie fan, but I want something that looks a tad more minimalistic and elegant, kind of blend in with my Apple sheepness. I do not use Apple Fitness Plus, but we do watch workout videos on YouTube. Crazy, right? There's this free site with content that tells you how to work out and how to lose weight and how to exercise. So we've been following along with all kinds of different workout videos. We did some last night. When do you think the Series 7 is coming out? I literally have heard nothing. I haven't heard any leakers or any analysts or anybody say when the Series 7 is supposed to come out, but my just random personal guess is end of October. I don't know why. I just feel like it's one of those things that is going to launch at the end of a certain month, and I feel like they unveiled it in September, so end of October just sounds right to me, but I don't know. Would you ever get a Herman Miller chair? I don't know about those. Best third-party MagSafe charger and case, just ordered Spigen. Oh, off topic. Are you asking me what the best third-party? If you just ordered one, it's probably that one. Microsoft killed Minecraft Earth at launch because they made everything pay-to-win progress. If you tried to not spend money, it was a miserable time. The month prior to it going down, they literally even said they would make the game more fun by turning off all microtransactions. Oh, wow. So they turned off all the microtransactions just in the last stretch. So basically, yeah, people didn't want to pay money for it. Are you going to make a rant about the Surface Duo 2? I don't feel like it's worth the time. I mean, I still get a lot of people angry with me whenever I rant about something, and then I also get a bunch of people angry that I don't do enough rants. So it's like there's no pleasing everybody, and I think all of my arguments about the first Surface Duo pretty much still hold up with the Duo 2. all that's really changed is that there's another display on the outside, and it's even more expensive than before. And they gave it some more cameras, which I'm sure are fine. They're probably not the best cameras, but they're better than the last cameras. So I don't know. I don't think there's much to say there. I think I would just try it out and be like, yep, still not worth it. Still don't do it. What are your thoughts on the newest Surface Book? I wasn't terribly interested. I watched the Surface event. The reason I don't do tech videos on the Surface products or that much outside of Apple these days is because I feel like when I do, I either get people saying, Drew, you're the Apple sheep, I don't care what you think, or I get people saying, I'm only interested when you talk about Apple. So that has kind of pushed me to be less interested in covering Microsoft stuff, because when I do, people just don't seem to care. I'm not terribly interested. Like, I'm not in the market to buy anything from Microsoft. So the only reason I would cover it or talk about it is if there's people interested in me talking about it. So if I don't see much interest in it, I'm not going to talk about it. But I would have been super interested in a new Surface Studio because I've mentioned before, that's like my guilty pleasure. That's the one Surface product I really, really am jealous of, and I wish Apple would copy it and do something similar. Can you imagine like M1X Mac Mini with a 30-inch display attached that can swivel down, and when you swivel it down, it turns into an iPad, and it's compatible with the Apple Pencil. You can snap it on the side of your desktop, and you can have this great drawing canvas with all of this screen real estate and do everything you need to do. But then when you want to use Mac OS and you want to edit in Final Cut and Logic and Xcode, you can just raise the display up and put it back into desktop mode. Oof, man, I really want Apple to do something like that, but they didn't do any new stuff with the Surface Studio. They just want to focus on the laptops, I guess. The Surface Studio laptop feels like it overlaps a little too much with the Surface Pro for me. I mean, I get that it has a better graphics card and they can fit more powerful components on the inside, but it feels like there's so many options now to have a laptop tablet 2-in-1 product. And Microsoft just has several different versions of the same thing. It's like, okay, I get it. It's a laptop, and then when I want it to be a tablet, it can be a tablet. You can buy the Surface Pro, or you can buy the Surface Laptop Studio, or whatever it's called. Both basically are the same concept. One is just heavier and bulkier and costs more because it has a bigger GPU. So it's kind of an interesting manufacturing approach, I guess. I've never seen a laptop with a display that like pops out like that and folds flat, but it doesn't really change the end concept, in my opinion, that, okay, you have a keyboard attached to a display and you can basically get rid of the keyboard and go all in on the touch interface if you want it. Yeah, we talked about the iPad Air 5 at the beginning of the stream, and then people asked about other stuff, so I talked about other stuff. They took off the Red Series 6 from Apple's website. What? They did what? Let me look. Where? I saw someone say the Series 6 is not available. That can't be right. What is this? This is the first option. If I select this, GPS, will it let me buy it? Oh, okay. It says unavailable. Delivery unavailable, pickup unavailable. Okay, all right, there's one of them. Let's try a different one. Something that looks a little more natural. Okay, this says it's typical sport band, silver case, unavailable. What about a different size? 40 millimeter? Unavailable. Cellular? Unavailable. There's no Series 6s. They're all gone. 40? Oh, okay, this one delivers in October. Okay, never mind. So that's not entirely true. They have some coming in late October. Does it just depend on the... Okay, that one's unavailable. There's probably very specific sizes that are available. The really small wrists? No. Oh, just the size 2. That's interesting. So only very specific watch bands they have. So yeah, I guess the red one's gone. I saw the blue one. These are all gone. We did that on a different stream. We tried to select any steel Series 6, and pretty much every single one of them was missing. Wow. Well, that's evident of anything. They've probably stopped Series 6 production, and they're just going through inventory at this point. It wouldn't shock me. We just talked about Apple releasing the Series 7. Maybe they'll release it on stream. Yeah, I hope so. I am wearing my Series 3, which this is going to make the jump in Apple Watch experience quite noticeable to me. I'm going from a Series 3 to a 7 now. Let's see. If you had only one chance to talk to Tim Cook and Elon Musk, who would you talk to? Definitely Elon. I feel like he has a lot more interesting things to say, and I feel like he would be honest. Tim would just misdirect everything. He'd just be like, oh, I can't talk about that. Let's see. Rob says, I'm late with this, but could we see a difference in wireless charging speeds between base and pro models in the future? Just a thought. I don't know about wireless charging speed differences. Maybe. I guess there was some OnePlus wireless charging tech that was pretty advanced, where they could get like 30 watts wirelessly. Maybe Apple would want to introduce that on the Pro phones because they just have bigger batteries, so they can take advantage of that. I did find out the other day, the 13 Pro Max can charge faster than all the other iPhones. Probably just because it has a battery capacity that won't get severely damaged by the higher charge rates. But if you have a 30-watt USB-C brick, you can charge the 13 Pro Max at 27 watts, whereas all the rest cap out, I think, around 21. Knowing Apple, they will probably create something like the Surface Studio laptop, and the design would end up being better than Microsoft. Well, Apple's been making iPads and laptops for a long time, but they've seemed pretty confident about not really merging the two. Do you think iPads will ever get wireless charging? I can't think of a good way for them to do it, because most people buying iPads buy them with keyboard cases and smart folio covers, and that all magnetically attaches to the back of the iPad. And there's not a lot of people that rest their iPad flat on, like, some kind of charging area. So I feel like wireless doesn't make as much sense on an iPad. Could the iPad Air 5 actually be useful, or will the 11-inch be better value? Well, the 11-inch is going to cost more, so that inherently makes it much more difficult to say it's better value. But a refurbished 11-inch will probably make the Air 5 not worth it. I still was never super-duper happy with the pricing on the Air 4. I thought $600 was just a tad too high for my liking, especially if it doesn't have Face ID. But I don't know. I think the Air 5 is mostly going to be just catch-up upgrades. Thank you, Jane, for the super chat. I think it's mainly going to be like, okay, now it has the A15 chip, now it has 5G, now it has the flash, now it has center stage, because everything else in the iPad lineup already has that. So now that the OLED display sounds like it's not happening, it sounds like a fairly minor upgrade. It's something that they would just sneak into a little event, kind of like a spring event. Craig would be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. He says, keep up the good work. Thank you, Jane. Zachary says, I almost think the release date might be even sooner than we expect. Last week I saw most of the watches were still available, but now there's a very limited amount. Well, I wouldn't be shocked if they're selling out of the remaining inventory of the Series 6, but I don't think that guarantees the 7 is ready right away. I feel like Apple and Nintendo would get along in the press department. I heard Nintendo just flatly denying stuff most people think is true. I could totally see Apple doing that as well. Well, Apple gets accused of that a lot, but I don't think it's usually justified. That's why I've built a reputation of being an Apple sheep, is because oftentimes Apple will respond with an answer that is very true and clear, and everyone will be like, Apple's just denying the issue. Because everyone was complaining about the Jellygate thing, and then Apple came forward and said, no, all LCD displays do that. All of our iPads do that. iPad mini is no different. And everyone's like, see, Apple's just denying the problem. It's like, no, that's true. All their other iPads do that. It's just people are complaining about it on the iPad mini because it's like a newer Apple product. And maybe because it's a smaller display, it's easier to notice because you can see the entire canvas shrunken down. So maybe the jelly effect is more noticeable that way. But yeah, like all the other iPads do the same thing. Javon says, I really need the iPad Air 5, as the budget iPad is too dated and the mini is too small and the Pro is too much money. So a $600 iPad will be very nice. Aha! Javon, I see your predicament and I will bring you a solution. What you need is a certified refurbished iPad Pro. If your budget is $600, let me find this here. Oh, come on. They make it so hard to freaking find on the web page. Okay, this is going to be good because I have to bring this up every stream contractually. All right, here you go. So you wanted the iPad Air 5 to come out, even though it was probably going to be 64 gigs, have a standard camera. Well, guess what? Certified refurbished comes with a full Apple warranty. They replace the battery. They replace the outer shell. $600, 128 gigs, 11-inch iPad Pro. That's going to give you Face ID and 120 hertz and LiDAR for all of you augmented reality 3D modeling people out there. And all that is different is that the box looks a little bit different. But aside from that, it's basically brand new. You'll get a fast charger with it. A12Z chip is plenty fast. Trust me, the A14 or A15 is not going to be much faster than this. If faster at all, it's probably on par. But yeah, it says it comes with all the same manual and accessory, same 1-year warranty, a new battery, and an outer shell. So you're not getting a used chassis, you're not getting used metal or used anything really, other than the internals, which you're never going to notice. So that's what I would recommend you to do. If your budget is $600, go refurbished. Absolutely. Funny how everyone says the average person won't notice 120 FPS, but will notice the jelly effect in iPad mini. I don't actually see that happening. Yeah, I saw a ton of people commenting on my Jellygate video that they can't see the difference. There's like a ton of people that are like, I've had a ton of iPads and I've never noticed Jellygate, and I have the iPad mini 6. I don't notice Jellygate. So I genuinely think average consumers don't notice that type of thing. It's a tech community complaint. My school iPad has all kinds of things blocked on it. If I buy a refurbished iPad Pro from 2020, it will fit in this case and nobody will know it's my personal iPad. M1 on iPad Pro is totally overkill for my heavy Safari. Yeah, I would agree. I want to give my mom a new phone and she isn't a heavy user and wants a small phone. I'm getting 12 mini for $550, including taxes, and 13 mini costs $760. What should I get? She has a SE 2nd gen right now. If she's not a heavy user, just get a 12 mini. Yeah, I mean, if she's living with an SE, a 12 mini is still an upgrade from that. Damn says seems like a really good idea. Good deal. Yeah. I agree. Would you upgrade your iPhone if they enable center stage in the camera app? No, the screen's too small. I don't like back away from my phone when I'm FaceTiming. If I FaceTime on my phone, I'm like holding it here. With an iPad or a Mac, that's when you FaceTime and you like step away and you have it set up on the counter and you're walking around. Center stage makes sense on the iPads. It doesn't really make much sense on the phone because you're not going to be that far away. I mean, they could add it, but it's definitely not a reason to upgrade, in my opinion. Is upgrading from the regular 12 to 13 Pro a big and worthy upgrade? Of course, the answer is always going to depend on the person. It's never an objective yes or no. It's always a, do you care about those features? Do you care about cinematic mode? Do you care about 120 hertz? Do you care about macro mode or ProRes recording? Do you care about those things? Yes, no, maybe. You got to decide for yourself. To like my parents or my wife, if they were on an iPhone 12, no, they would not want a 13 Pro. They would not care about any of those features. Someone in the tech community who might want to use their phone for recording YouTube videos and that kind of thing, that type of person might care. We all know that if Jellygate happened on an Android tablet, no one would care. I know, because it has happened. If you go look on Android tablets, they do the exact same thing, and no one has ever brought it up. My mom is going to get an iPhone 11 because she's using my old iPhone 7 Plus. All she wants is a new phone with a big screen. That's fair. iPhone 11 suits that. Jared Jackson says, do you think there are new MacBooks coming soon? I'm saving for the M1 MacBook Pro right now. I'd love to get the newest thing, though. Yes, I do think MacBook Pros are coming out relatively soon. It's the last day of September. Happy September. It was a quite exciting one for all of us. We got lots of Apple products, lots of releases, lots of leaks. It was just a fun time for YouTube videos overall. But I do think either sometime in October, at the very least November, we should be getting a second Apple event that's going to be all about M1X or M2X or whatever. And there's actually a little bit of leaks to talk about regarding the upcoming MacBook Pros. So I would definitely hold off if you can. If you got to buy one right now, right this second, at least look around for a deal, buy it refurbished or buy it on sale or something like that. But today's tech video, spoiler alert, is being published right now as we're concluding the stream. And we're talking about what's rumored to be different on these upcoming MacBook Pros. I think they're going to cost about the same as the current MacBook Pros. I don't expect a big price jump personally. I could be wrong. But I think that the 14-inch MacBook Pro will start at $1,800, and the 17-inch MacBook Pro will be like $2,400, that kind of thing. But anyway, go check out the video. It's in the chat. I'm heading out, so thank you all for watching. Hope you have an excellent rest of your day. See you next month. See you in spooky October season. Take care, all. Bye-bye.